And what I'm rather excited about is that somehow I've been able to incorporate some of the questions that were sent to me. The talk is rather lengthy, but I would say I'm going to condense it, and then what isn't really spoken about, I'm going to have it written and available for those who attend. I think the theme of this spiritual gathering is a beautiful title, of The Humble Heart. And I can't tell you how many times I've been humbled, willingly or not. But it seems like when you put your heart into the matter, it all turns out very good. And I think that this is a theme that really shows who we are too as well, because we would not have been able to survive without the humility that we've had in our heart. Really, truly, we have overcome many obstacles together in this life and in many others before. So, as you know, I will be here on Friday to help initiate the gathering. I know that what is going to be spoken about on stage and who's representing the way of truth is going to be very important for a lot of people who don't know how it works. But to have me here is, we've never done it. But I felt it was important because of the nature of the title to initiate it with a vibration because of the heart resonance of everyone that's here. And I believe that anyone who is coming to our shores for the first time will feel what has been emanating from our soul, what we feel for humanity, how we've moved and changed many things. And of course, this gathering is right before we decide who we'd like to have run this country. I have to say the women are in for a big surprise. I think it's time that there is a change for the hormonal structure of the White House. I think we need a woman's face on that wall. And it matters not about Republican or Democrat. What it has to do with is what America needs. And one of the things that right now, with that humble heart vibration, what's going to really affect the American public and the world is who's going to come forth before the world representing America with that type of heart. So America is going to be making some important decisions. And I'm not talking about the rightness or wrongness of any party. I think that Trump is just being Trump. But the man means well. I think Ben Carson's a good man. I think many of the other men on the Republican end are good men. But there's a lot of good women, too. And it's a time. So what comes from this gathering is going to really affect this election in terms of how we point our spiritual vibration to affect the society. We're small, but we're strong. But yet we're small, but we're invisibly many, because many are standing behind us from other ways of life who have read our works and have basically have given me a lot of their own resource and time to make what we're doing possible. And in behalf of many of my predecessors who are no longer with us, the CAG, and even to include Cal Narajan, he's got a tough job. He thanks each and every one of you for the administrative input that you've given all of us. And of course, it comes with challenge. It comes with life challenge. It comes with sacrifice. But what we're able to do for others is so insurmountably great that in the end, when the day is done and we all ride together into the sunset, we can look at what we've achieved together. We can look at the fine example, good souls that have been picked up off the ground that needed that inspiration. Our works represent so much to so many, and I could not have done the job thus far without many of you and the input. And I regret, but I will get there full time so that I will be able to spend more time. What I'd like to do is to have, in my vision, and one of the visions, and someone said, "Oh, sure, Michael, what in the next year could you visualize for the administration?" You know, I'd like to have is a small mini camp of our administration where we could all sit down, break bread together, do small gatherings of dialogue together. I'd even have a chance to talk about what painstaking hours it took to write many of the books like Psalms of the Prophet. A lot of people don't realize it. I actually wrote that book in ICU on scrap paper. Thank goodness for kind nurses. I wouldn't have been able to do it without other people helping me. It's rather a long story, but rather a funny one. It's just that some things I'd have to say, don't do what I do, don't break into the tomb that got me sick. But I'm looking at all of that, and I'm looking at the book. There is something to facing challenge and knowing, I might have to pay for this, but that's okay. The works really meant something. But it came down to a story that I had another participant come with me who basically thought I was a little off the table and went into a tomb that had 3 prophets. Being the person I am, and if you've learned how eccentric I can be at times, I couldn't just be standing there looking down at the floor. I had to get down on my knees and be about this far away from those prophets, and I inhaled the genetic material, which gave me the same kind of challenge that the Carter expedition ran into. If I would have done it again, well, I think I would, because there'd be no Psalms of the Prophet. But many of our literature is reaching so many camps. I've spoken with pastors from Jehovah's Witness, had coffee, broke bread with them. I've sat down and broke bread with the Mormon Church. We have a person that is very, very close to us who might become one of the prophet's disciples, which is a very high position in the Mormon Church. And they have sent me their young novice to sit and talk with them about the Book of Mormon. Many of them have claimed, "I tell you what, Smith, as well as some of our pastors, like you knew him personally." Well, of course, because of our works and knowing the orthodoxy that we deal with, you have to modulate your words and say, "I was divinely inspired." But our camp has gone to many places. We're going to every place in the world, have accepted our books. There's been no closed doors. And it has to do with our humble heart. I don't know, as I say, I don't know what I would have been able to do without each of you, but the kindness and compassion of your heart. And when I think about myself with a quill and candle, and I look about you and I remember all your beautiful faces, I think, and I get this inspiration about what all of you have given me in terms of your kindness, your compassion, your energy, your flair, your inspiration. Often at times I just ignore the clock. I know that simply the time does not matter. What matters is that we're seizing the time. And we're also seizing the opportunity for America to take a huge leap. And I have said it to those of both camps, Democrats and Republicans. This is one nation. We cannot do and unite this nation and move forward unless we move spiritually together. And one of our participants said to me, "Well, are those waters separate than political or social?" I think what a person buys is spiritual. I think what they do with their money is spiritual. I think who they socialize with is spiritual. The spiritual waters move into every walk of life, and I'll tell you what, if we had a little bit more political people hovering around the White House with a little bit more spirituality, some of our challenges that would not be there We need to bring America under the umbrella of more spiritual responsibility to its people. When they look at that flag, they look at men that had a dream of a better nation. And we're living in that dream. And what did they put on two important documents to begin this nation? In God we trust. It all started there with religious men coming together and speaking about God and saying that it's time for us to forge a new nation. Forge a nation with religious freedom and expression. And we are here now. And I can tell you, when I was in Baltimore and I was going in Fells Point, my brother said to me, right on that block, they used to deliver slaves. And that used to be a hotel for the slave master. As he said that, I saw a black gentleman coming out who was staying there. And I was just thinking on a funny twist on how America's changed in the years. And it's because of our spiritual maturity. Politics weren't changed by politicians. The politics of America were changed by men of the cloth, by good Catholic ministers, Lutheran pastors, pastors in the South, all forging a new place for America to say, it's time for our values to change. And we took that left-hand turn and we changed. And it's only through the help of people like you that we are here at this place. We are fortunate it is not as dangerous as it was back in that day 50 years ago, when a black pastor would have to be on a horse and carriage all by himself, no street lights, and he might have said something from the podium that might have offended a few people. It's all the humble heart. And as you move on, many of you, spiritually advancing and expanding, you'll find yourself many times speaking before Sutmod on bended knee. And believe me, the higher you go, the lower those knees go. Because remember, what we set into motion returns. And we've got some interesting exercises. Our head of spiritual services is going to have a great exercise on the karmic loop. It's one of which that I put forth in the literature, but we've discussed it, and I think it's going to be a part of his workshop. Now, I know he's going to put it in his workshop, even if he didn't intend to, because I talked about it. I just love subtle pressure. But all in all, we have some very interesting things to say, and I do have some new spiritual exercises that will help put some breakthrough in the personal, in terms of your own emotions, setbacks, things like this. Your waning of the heart. But it all comes with the humble heart. So, it's going to be a bit of a different talk because I wanted to incorporate answers to the questions. So I may jump around a little bit and ad-lib and improvise, though I like to refine my talk, because if I don't come with a pencil and paper, everybody drops in and I'm talking about everything, to include that comet that's coming near to our planet. If it was only a comet, I'll just say that. There's a few things I really want to talk about, some earth-shaking events and different things that are happening here in Earth history that has happened, that will happen. And a lot of people are already intuiting how human genetics will change. We're changing. And we will continue to change. There are great changes coming forward. So I will be talking about what one world government is about, but I'm also going to be talking about how that humble heart really has a way of breaking up all the plans that these fine men of wealth would like to do in terms of telling us what we can eat, where we can go, what we can think, what we can say. So it's going to be a very interesting gathering, and some of you that are talking, if you happen to be very well prepared in what you want to say, and then you come back and look at your notes and say, well, I didn't say that. It's because you're plugged in. So our ISP, and I'd have to say, one of our younger participants said, what's the way of truth? I said, it's a big ISP. He said, I'm cool with that. I'm cool. I can really understand now. And I just said, you plugged in. It's like a universal internet provider. And you're hooked into the mainframe. And he said, well, in typical fashion of hey babe, I can just deal with that. And so we are using the language of love, the language of our heart, to get people plugged in. And how they plug in is not basically that important because we want them to be their own person. We've done a lovely job, and when I say we, all of us together, of bringing people closer to their heart. I read all the IROs, and one of our participants said, I read these discourses, and sometimes tears come to my eyes. I start getting choked up. I just said, well, if he knew the master would have went through that heartache to bring that information to us, he would realize how close he is to reality. And I was compelled to answer an email when he said, well, how has it changed me? And I said, how's your heart? He said, I could seem to love more. I said, but how's your life? He said, well, a year ago I didn't have a girlfriend. I live with my mother. I got my own apartment. Got my own car now, too. And I can even pay for the insurance myself. So, with that in mind, the gist is that the subtle changes that have come in people's lives, this course has had a great deal of impact. And I believe the subtleties of it, of how we work as a movement, really helps that humble heart in that if we saw all the changes within ourselves, we'd be too busy looking at ourselves in the mirror. Not that I don't think you're good looking, but if you're looking in the mirror too much, you're not looking really around what's happening with your environment, and you're all a part of it. I wanted to just make this appearance just before I get back to the writing. And of course, I have to say that as a living master, I've got one of the best administrations that any living master could ever have. Paul, stand back. That's all I can say. I've got the best and finest here with me, and it has really helped me to leap and fly, because people said, how did you write that? I said, you know what? I started thinking of my administration. All these fine folks that believe, and then I put that belief into action, and I put that heart and break it down into words. Sometimes I just have to stop and cry myself, get a tissue and blow my nose. And just thinking about it, I start to tear up, because it has to do with the humility in our heart. And it goes without saying that many men before me had good people just like you around them. But as far as I'm concerned, I've got the best. You're the best and finest that I've ever believed in. I'll take that extra mile. I don't care how high that mountain is. I'll take a bullet for each of you. And what did I say that for? Well, I meant it. But the sacrifice that each of you have made it all worthwhile. And of course, it's not easy for any of us, and sometimes I'm asked to go into the consciousness of many and feel their pain and let them know I'm there with you. And I'm feeling it with you. And we have shouldered so much together that there's never been a time throughout the eons that we haven't been together in some way or another. I give you the recognition of the Grand Council, the silent line for your work. They often stand back and often don't say much. It all resonates from their heart. And what I get an ear from them is how much you are doing. And I often forget about what I'm going through because of the sacrifice that each of you have gone through, and I appreciate it so much. So with that in mind, I must take my leave, even as hard as it is to be away from you. I'd like to just stop and have a party, personally. I don't even want to go back to my room and get back to writing, but I must. And in another day and time, and I promise I will be full-time, we will have, like I said, a mini camp, a camp where all of us just have a chance to walk down and hear the trickle of the streams, be able to talk across the dinner table, and have plenty of time to talk. And many of you would say, well, how did you write that book? And I could be able to break it down. Who was the master involved with that? How many were involved? How were you able to get that information? And many things that I'm doing you can do too now because of the many techniques. It's just a matter of practice. But the subtlety of it is something that I really want you to tune in on because our works are very subtle. We've had the grandiose parades. The parade always ends. But the subtlety, the Spirit's power, ever-changing, eternal, cannot be stopped. We will prevail. I give you the recognition of the CG, but from my heart, each of you have my personal love. And there are simply no words that really match up, that can follow that of what each of you have done. And I've felt all the heartache too. But when we feel together and know that we're not alone, it makes us strong. And we get stronger every day. We're going to expand. And as people come in, we're going to give them love. We're going to pick them up. We're going to inspire them with angelic music. With fine photography and artwork, with the kindness of soul, good administration, and the wisdom that you bring to the table. There are many that have tuned in of different robes of spirituality that admire each of you. And I can say that every inch of their admiration is well deserved. I'm not going to say blessed be because I'm not Indian. This is just beginning. You know, our gathering and the vibration is going to mount now. You might go through a little bit of body changes. Ladies, it ain't to change your life, okay? It's spirit moving along. So, it was really unintended. But it seemed to be in place because people have asked me, well, I'm going to this hot and cold. But the vibration runs like that and it will affect your body. Sometimes it is actually burning off something that your immune system can't. So I really too want to put your attention on that as well. So you'll see me tonight to initiate the talk. I'm very excited about what our board is going to be sharing with you in terms of the vision that we're going to be putting on paper, and we're going to want your input. Don't think that there's anything simple about anything that you have to say that's from your heart. It's all important. So each of us are going to have a hand in a template that's going to be a strategic plan for our growth. With all that said, I'm not going to do a Michael Jackson and do a moonwalk like I did a couple of years ago. I'm just going to walk out that door and say I love you. And I promise I'll always be there for you. And we're family. We are a very strong, beautiful, spiritual family. And so, thank you. I still want more music.
Give me a few minutes. You can do that if you like.
Do this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
My best is that disease called numbers.
The break time, or before we start?
Sure, we can wait, yeah.
Take 5 minutes. I mean, all person when we're done.
Taking 5 minutes.
Rich,
All in 5 minutes.
John.
How many microphones do you have?
Does anybody want to take a quick trip to the restroom before we get into the second half? That might be a good idea. Let's do that.
She's gonna do. I'll just say right. Oh, I can't see it. There's Nancy. In the physical.